Alcatraz has always represented more than just stone walls and frigid waters. It has stood as a mystery cloaked in fog, tangled in barbed wire, and steeped in myth. For years, the world has looked out at that jagged island in San Francisco Bay, asking one lingering question: did they get away? Now, in 2025, a new revelation has emerged, so deliberate, so precise, that it's turning long-held beliefs upside down. But don't expect a neat resolution. This story isn't about good or evil, it's about shadows, science, and a quiet night that still reverberates with unanswered questions. What really happened behind those prison walls? And how close have we come, at last, to uncovering the truth? Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, widely known as The Rock, was one of the most secure prisons in American history. Located 1.25 miles off the coast of San Francisco, the island began as a military fort in the 1850s before being transformed into a federal prison in 1934. Run by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, Alcatraz was created to house inmates deemed too dangerous or unmanageable for other institutions. From the start, it was intended to be the ultimate stop, a high-security, low-privilege facility for the most incorrigible offenders. The prison itself was a marvel of control and design. The main building, constructed between 1910 and 1912, included 4 cell blocks, a dining area, medical facilities, a library, and administrative offices. Cells were small, bare, and reinforced with steel bars that couldn't be tampered with. Inmates were counted up to 13 times daily, and the guard-to-prisoner ratio was the tightest in the country. Security was reinforced with metal detectors, tear gas installations, and armed guards stationed in raised galleries. Privileges like work detail, visitation, and even talking during meals had to be earned, creating a harsh and mentally draining environment. Though Alcatraz had a capacity for about 312 inmates, it was rarely full. Some of the country's most infamous criminals were held there, including Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly. The most dangerous inmates were sent to D-Block, where they endured solitary confinement in conditions so extreme they were often considered inhumane. The facility operated under strict racial segregation, with no focus on rehabilitation, only control. Over time, especially in the 1930s and 1940s, security upgrades like electric fences and new locking mechanisms were implemented. Despite such improvements, the harsh conditions and rising maintenance costs eventually led to the prison's closure on March 21, 1963, as saltwater corrosion caused serious deterioration to the infrastructure. Even after its closure, Alcatraz captured the public's imagination. Now managed by the National Park Service and visited by over 1 million people annually, it serves as a museum offering a glimpse into what was once the most feared prison in the country. Its history blurs the line between punishment and survival. The structures may have been solid, but the myth of Alcatraz proved stronger, until one night changed everything. More than a prison, Alcatraz came to symbolize the final word in American incarceration. Isolated on a wind-battered island, it was where the justice system sent inmates it had given up on. Its layout, remoteness, and strict daily regimens built a reputation that escape wasn't just unlikely, it was unthinkable. This wasn't folklore, it was backed by numbers. Over nearly 3 decades of operation, no escape was officially successful. Out of 14 attempts, most were either recaptured or killed, while a few disappeared into the bay, presumed dead. The icy waters, strong currents, and distance from land made the island's surrounding waters the final, deadly barrier. To try and escape was seen as a death sentence. Alcatraz's reputation relied heavily on the idea that it was escape-proof. It wasn't just about confinement, it was about destroying any illusion of freedom. Guards, officials, and the public all believed in the legend of its inescapability, and that myth bolstered its authority. That myth began to crack in June 1962, when, during the night of June 11, 3 inmates, Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin, vanished from their cells. The escape dealt a major blow to Alcatraz's legend. Once it was believed that even one person might have outwitted the system, the psychological armor surrounding the prison began to fall away. Unlike earlier attempts, this one left behind a mystery instead of closure. With no definitive ending, the escape became a growing fascination. To this day, the 1962 escape is not just a historical event, it's a pivotal chapter in the Alcatraz story. Whether the escapees lived or died remains unknown, but their disappearance cracked open the myth that had stood for decades. Frank Lee Morris wasn't just another convict, he was a brilliant, experienced escape artist, precisely the type of man Alcatraz was built to hold. Orphaned by age 11 and in trouble with the law by 13, Morris had spent most of his life in foster care and correctional institutions. These early experiences sharpened his survival instincts. His criminal record included armed robbery, drug possession, and several successful prison escapes. After fleeing Louisiana State Penitentiary, he was transferred to Alcatraz in January 1960. But even upon arrival, he was already planning his way out. In Alcatraz, Morris was placed near John and Clarence Anglin and Alan West, all of whom he had known from previous incarcerations. With adjacent cells, they whispered at night, forming what would become one of the most well-organized escape teams in history. Morris became the natural leader, combining intelligence with practical experience. The team spent months carving away at the salt-damaged concrete around the ventilation shafts using stolen spoons, old saw blades, and a homemade drill powered by a vacuum cleaner motor. Morris created fake vent covers from papier-mâché and paint stolen from the prison shop and library. He played his accordion during music hour to cover the sounds of drilling, demonstrating extraordinary planning and attention to detail. This wasn't just a prison break, it was a direct challenge to Alcatraz's reputation. They stitched over 50 raincoats together into a 6x14-foot rubber raft and made life jackets, sealing the materials using hot steam pipes. They even turned a concertina into an air pump. Though authorities claimed the men drowned, no bodies were recovered. A 2013 letter later surfaced suggesting otherwise. Whether Morris died or disappeared into a new life, the escape was arguably the most brilliant in Alcatraz's history, proving that even the rock could be broken. John and Clarence Anglin were more than just two prisoners, they were brothers tied by loyalty and a deep desire for freedom. Raised in a large, poor family in rural Florida, they learned early how to rely on each other. Their shared experiences, particularly with crime and hardship, led them to develop an unbreakable bond. Their crimes, mostly bank robberies, landed them in the Atlanta Penitentiary, but their repeated escape attempts eventually earned them a transfer to Alcatraz. Once there, they were reunited with Morris and placed in cells next to him and Alan West, creating the perfect setup for collaboration. While Morris engineered the plan, the Anglin brothers played vital roles in execution. They helped dig through weakened concrete with spoons and saw blades, crafted vent disguises, and collected supplies through prison work assignments. They worked with Morris to assemble the raft and life jackets, using raincoats and hot pipes to weld the rubber. Understanding prison operations and access to supplies through the factory system was essential. Every step they took was deliberate. They even helped sculpt the lifelike dummy heads using soap, toilet paper, and hair from the barbershop floor, all to fool the night guards. The aftermath of their disappearance remains one of the most captivating mysteries in U.S. criminal history. Despite being declared dead in 1979, new evidence has suggested they may have survived. A 2013 letter claimed they were still alive, and there were intercepted Christmas cards and even a photograph from 1975 that some say shows the brothers in Brazil. Interviews with former guards and family members described the escape as disturbingly quiet, no alarms, no noise. If they made it, the Anglins didn't just escape from prison, they slipped into history's blind spot. The true genius of the 1962 escape didn't lie solely in the digging or raft making, it was in the illusion. One of the most crucial aspects of the plan was the creation of dummy heads so realistic they fooled guards during nightly checks. These decoys were sculpted from soap, toothpaste, and toilet paper, then painted with stolen art supplies and topped with real human hair. Guards only glanced in for signs of movement and never physically disturbed the inmates. With the dummies propped on pillows under blankets, the illusion of sleeping men was convincing enough to buy hours of time. The deception went further. The escapees concealed their tunnel work behind cardboard and papier-mâché made from torn library magazines. For months, they worked in secret, their efforts camouflaged behind everyday materials. The success of the escape wasn't just in breaking out, it was in making sure no one knew they were gone until it was too late. That's what made it legendary. All the while, the prisoners were cleverly camouflaging the holes in their cells. These fakes resembled the air vent grills located at the back of each cell. These false grills blended so well into the walls that they perfectly hid the gaping escape routes behind them. When the guards peeked into the cells, all they saw were what appeared to be ordinary, sealed vents. In reality, though, these vents concealed tunnels leading to freedom. What made the illusion especially remarkable was how it resonated with the broader tradition of psychological warfare waged behind bars, the fine art of deception honed by desperate men in desperate circumstances. Around the world, deception has long played a role in prison breaks, from smuggling letters in hollowed-out books to crafting fake uniforms from laundry scraps. Still, few attempts rivaled the Alcatraz escape in terms of intricate detail and theatrical flair. Michael Dyke, the FBI agent who investigated the case, noted, "They didn't just dig out, they rehearsed a performance." This observation underscores how the escape was as much about psychological manipulation as it was about physical evasion. The prisoners transformed their cells into stages for one night, assuming the ghostly roles of men who vanished. Yet, the deception was just the beginning. The real escape unfolded beneath the surface. The foundation of the Alcatraz escape was literally etched into the crumbling infrastructure of the prison. Frank Morris, John and Clarence Anglin, and Alan West identified and exploited a critical vulnerability: assault-damaged concrete behind the air vents beneath their sinks. Over months, they chipped away at the weakened walls using simple yet ingenious tools. They stole metal spoons from the dining hall, repurposed old saw blades, and even constructed a makeshift drill from a vacuum cleaner motor. Gradually, night by night, they carved escape tunnels that led into an unguarded maintenance corridor. This feat wasn't achieved by brute force, but by extreme patience and surgical precision. To avoid discovery, they covered the holes each day with cardboard and papier-mâché grills, painted with supplies from the prison library to seamlessly match the walls. They timed their digging with the daily music hour, when loud instruments, especially Morris's wheezy accordion, masked the noise of scraping and drilling, turning the cell block into a covert construction zone. Once the holes were wide enough to crawl through, the escapees accessed the unguarded corridor and ascended to an abandoned upper level of the prison, where they built a hidden workshop. Here, they stored materials and constructed the final components of their escape: a raft and paddles. This upper section was easier to reach thanks to the deteriorating conditions of the prison, which stood atop the aging remains of old military fortifications. Former prisoners and later investigators recalled how the foundation of Alcatraz was rotting and breaking up, giving the escapees a chance to work in the old maintenance tunnels undisturbed. One of the last crucial steps in their plan involved reaching the ventilation shaft at the very top of the cell block. The men climbed 30 feet using plumbing pipes, removed the vent cover, and replaced it with one sealed by a fake bolt mold from soap, another small but impressive detail. By the time they made their move, they had created a sophisticated path from their cells to the roof, using the prison's age and overlooked flaws against it. In doing so, they accomplished what no one else had: a precise, undetected escape from the rock. With the tunnel completed and the prison's upper levels successfully navigated, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers faced their greatest challenge yet: at the cold, powerful waters of San Francisco Bay. The temperature hovered between 50 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and the currents were infamously strong. These natural barriers had long sustained Alcatraz's reputation as inescapable. But Morris and the Anglins weren't merely fleeing a prison, they were escaping a fortified island. To accomplish this, they engineered a raft and life vests from over 50 stolen raincoats, a testament to their resourcefulness and determination. The raft, about 6 by 14 feet, was assembled in their hidden workshop using thread from the prison work areas. The seams were sealed by melting rubber with steam pipes from the prison's plumbing system. To inflate the raft, they repurposed a concertina, an accordion-like instrument, into a hand pump. Even the paddles were homemade, crafted from plywood likely salvaged during their prison duties. All the materials they needed had been hidden in plain sight. On the night of June 11, 1962, after months of preparation, the trio reached the northeastern shoreline of the island. There, under cover of darkness, they inflated and launched their raft, setting course for Angel Island, located just under 2 miles away. The prison remained unaware of their escape until morning, and the first signs of the journey surfaced over the following days. On June 14, the Coast Guard found a paddle. That same day, a sealed package containing personal items belonging to the Anglin brothers was discovered. A week later, pieces of the raft washed up near the Golden Gate Bridge, along with a homemade life vest. Still, these artifacts provided no conclusive trace of the escapees. While many, including the prison warden, believed they had drowned, others were convinced otherwise. "You hear the wind, don't you? And do you see the water?" the warden asked in a BBC interview. "Do you think you could make it?" Yet the raft's craftsmanship and the precision of the escape led some, including FBI agent Art Roderick, to believe the men might have survived. Later scientific analyses suggested that, if launched during a narrow tidal window, such an escape could indeed succeed. Whether the men died in the bay or reached freedom, the Raincoat Raft remains a powerful symbol of ingenuity and defiance against what was once considered America's most secure prison. Alan West was initially part of the escape plan, but he never made it out. A longtime Alcatraz inmate since 1957, West had known Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers from previous prisons, and their proximity in neighboring cells allowed them to coordinate the plan. West contributed at every stage, chiseling the wall behind his sink, helping gather materials for the raft and dummy heads, and assisting with the construction of the escape route. But on the night of June 11, 1962, he hit an obstacle, he couldn't break through the final layer of concrete in time. According to his later confession, his tunnel was too narrow, and he had misjudged how much cement needed to be removed. In a panic, he tried to widen the hole, but the others could not wait. With dawn approaching, Morris and the Anglin brothers moved on without him. West stayed behind, watching his chance at freedom slip away, not because of fear, but due to a few stubborn inches of wall. The next morning, guards discovered the escape, and West cooperated with authorities. He provided a thorough account of the plan, including the path to the utility corridor, the rooftop route, and their intended destination, Angel Island. His testimony formed the basis of the investigation and search. According to the BBC, he pointed out evidence such as the recovered paddle and belongings. Yet the escapees were never found, leading some to believe that the trio may have anticipated West's potential cooperation and altered their route. Although West avoided the deadly waters, he lost his shot at freedom. After the escape attempt, he remained incarcerated until Alcatraz closed in 1963 and served out the remainder of his sentence. Though overshadowed by those who vanished, West's role was essential, as he provided the most complete insider account. In the story of Alcatraz, he remains the grounded witness to a disappearance that might have truly succeeded. In 2013, more than 50 years after the escape, a new twist reignited public fascination. A letter, allegedly from John Anglin, was sent to the San Francisco Police Department. It began, "I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely." The letter claimed that Frank Morris had died in 2005, Clarence Anglin in 2008, and that John himself was dying and willing to surrender in exchange for medical treatment. The confession stirred intense speculation and prompted law enforcement to revisit the case. The FBI quietly reopened an investigation and subjected the letter to forensic testing, including handwriting comparison, fingerprint analysis, and DNA testing. Despite these efforts, the results were inconclusive. The handwriting didn't definitively match known samples, and no useful DNA or fingerprints were recovered. The letter remained credible enough to be considered possibly real, but lacked the hard proof needed to confirm its authenticity. The general public didn't learn about the letter until 2018, when local CBS affiliate KPIX broke the story. The letter, combined with decades of rumored sightings and family claims, added fuel to a mystery that refuses to die. Even before the letter surfaced, the Anglin family said they had received Christmas cards from the brothers. A much-debated 1975 photograph even appeared to show John and Clarence in Brazil. The content of the letter, its mention of survival, travel across states, and a quiet life in hiding, may be the most compelling clue yet that the escape worked. The U.S. Marshals Service still officially handles the case and has left it open. In 2022, they released age-progressed images of Morris and the Anglins, appealing to the public for new leads. While many officials still believe the men perished in the bay, others argue that too many questions remain unanswered. Whether the 2013 letter was a true confession or a masterful hoax, it may have brought us closer to the truth than any other clue before it. What makes the 2013 letter particularly fascinating is how it fits into a broader cultural obsession with vanished criminals and unsolved legends. In an era of constant surveillance and digital footprints, the idea that three men might have disappeared after breaking out of prison, and then lived for decades undetected, feels almost mythical. The story evokes the allure of figures like D.B. Cooper or Billy the Kid, criminals who vanish into history and become icons of escape and rebellion. An old saying goes, when the underdog could beat the system, people love a good mystery, a quote from Michael Dyke, a former U.S. Marshal, during a 2016 interview. This fascination is not only due to the possibility that the men might have survived, but also because it reflects the idea that even in a rigid institution, there are a few cracks through which freedom could slip through. Just when the case seemed to have gone cold, science uncovered something that myths could never explain. For years, prison authorities and federal investigators were convinced that Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers didn't survive their escape from Alcatraz. The cold, swift waters of San Francisco Bay were considered an impossible barrier. In a 1964 BBC interview, Warden Richard Willard voiced this belief, asking, "Do you think you could make it?" Like many others at the time, he assumed that even if the men had somehow left the island, the waters would have claimed their lives. This theory led to the FBI closing the case in 1979, declaring the escapees legally dead. However, in the years that followed, this belief was increasingly questioned by science. In 2014, a group of Dutch researchers used advanced computer modeling to recreate the tidal conditions on the night of June 11, 1962. They discovered that if the escapees launched their raft between 11 p.m. and midnight, the window that matched their estimated departure time, they could have been carried by the currents toward Angel Island. This simulation challenged the long-standing idea that the waters were impassable, presenting a plausible survival scenario if the men timed their escape carefully. This scientific breakthrough reignited interest in the case and shed new light on years of rumors and supposed sightings. After the Dutch study, a 2013 letter claiming the men had survived and lived in hiding gained new attention. Along with evidence like the recovered paddle, personal items, and remnants of the raft, it became more plausible that the men might have made it to shore alive. The escape, once thought impossible, might have been achievable if executed with the precision the men demonstrated in their planning. As more evidence and scientific findings have emerged, the U.S. Marshals' discrediting of the case has grown less convincing. It became clear that men like Morris and the Anglins could have vanished into quiet, law-abiding lives. Despite this, the case remains open, with updated age-progressed photographs of the three fugitives released as recently as 2022, showing that law enforcement has not given up on finding them. Science may have uncovered new truths, but the escape from Alcatraz remains one of America's most captivating unsolved mysteries, a story where fact and speculation continue to clash. Beyond tidal charts and forensic reconstructions, the fascination with the Alcatraz escape speaks to something deeper in American culture and national obsession with outsmarting the system. From books to films like Escape from Alcatraz, 1979, the tale has been mythologized, not just as a prison break, but as a story of human ingenuity overcoming institutional power.